Going into our SWOT, just to highlight a couple of the strengths that we feel like we want to focus on right away. Obviously, the airport improvement projects do qualify for restore funds as eligible activities, but we do need to make sure that we are choosing the best projects to bring forward, that we are fitting well within the scoring criteria, that we're working closely with the Restore Committee, with Dewberry, and with you to forward those projects for consideration. We feel like that the vacant work camp adjacent to the airport is also a tremendous asset. Companies that are looking at communities first want to consider an existing building. The fact that you own an existing building of that size and that it is adjacent to a very large parcel that connects the airport to the rail is of tremendous value to you. It may start the conversation. It could be a temporary company headquarters while they're building out their final facilities. It could be a workforce training facility for a company that's looking to be at or near the airport. So there's a lot of, and then there were some really interesting thoughts about how those types of facilities would be of interest to Hollywood and movie making. So it is a great asset in your community. And of course, then you have the airport flight training and instrument training providers that are now located there that are conducting these trainings and are helping to grow your workforce related to aviation and aerospace. And I just would like to take a moment to say to the students that are here today that careers in aviation and aerospace are lifelong, well-paying jobs, and any student that has any interest in aircraft from any standpoint, people are retiring in great droves, and that's one of the highest demand careers. You can work on airframes and power plants of aircraft. You can go on and get an additional 2-year certificate that allows you to become a manager. You can get up into directors of maintenance in programs. You can stay in this region, and the aviation and aerospace is something that this region is focusing on, and I think that's a great career for students to consider. So as we continue along, the Freight Logistics Zone Strategic Sites Report has identified properties in each of the areas, and I just want to click over really quickly. So this is where the zone is being in the yellow. And it goes along the Interstate 10 corridor there in Gadsden County, and it parallels the Apalachicola Northern Railroad as it comes into Franklin County around the airport and then over into the Port of Port St. Joe. The blue dots that you see are competitive sites that were identified through a suitability modeling program that Leota Location and Design that did the work for us. And that just means that those properties are proximate to the transportation assets. They're good for industrial use. We did look at industrial as the type of property. They are high and dry for the most part, and that the local economic development officials feel like landowner engagement is something that is doable, because whoever owns the land, we have to be able to approach them and talk to them about the value of their property and the value of the site. You can see 2 black boxes with a star in them, one up there at the I-10 Railroad interchange, and that is a proposed intermodal logistics center site. It's about 600 acres in Gadsden County. And then there's another there at the laydown yard near the port that's also proposed. So you want to be able to get the goods off the ships, up the railroad. You want to be able to get the goods off the trucks, transload them onto the railroad, and so we feel like those are 2 good sites. You can see some of the sites there in Liberty County, and then you can see the blue area there near the airport. We're going to talk about that a little more. Let me go back. We also feel like there's a huge opportunity to collaborate more with your TDC. You have a lot of wealthy tourists and celebrities who own aircraft and homes and call Franklin County their second home, as well as people who come here via their aircraft to do charter fishing. The holiday weekends particularly generate a great deal of general aviation traffic, even to the point that the Coast Guard brings in extra support on those holiday weekends for that reason. You have 3 runways. Granted, one's in jeopardy, but there's not any other airports around you that have 3 runways. They may be a lot longer and obviously have commercial activity for commercial flights, but you have 3 runways. And that you also are slated in 2018 to become part of an 8-county foreign trade zone, which makes this land even more valuable through the alternative sites framework, depending on how prepared we are with this property to convince the grantee, which will be the Tallahassee International Airport, that your property should be considered as a part of that foreign trade zone. And that has to do with having active users and really marketing it. And the reason, there's a couple other reasons why we want to be ready. We want to be ready because Eastern Shipbuilding is going to grow. We want to be ready because the Northwest Florida Beaches International just landed GKN, which is a big MRO. We want to be ready because Jackson County has a partnership with the state of Alabama to attract an automotive manufacturer to that site and then build a workforce training center in Alabama. But if a project that large is going to require the rest of us, the counties surrounding these activities, to also be prepared with the sites that I showed so that we can locate the suppliers to those activities. We did point out in our analysis several weaknesses. These were, again, input from the stakeholder conversations. Being an official member of the economic development organizations around you, I think, is very beneficial. It shows that we are working as a region, and it tells the rest of the world that we are cooperative in our efforts, and you are cooperative in your efforts. You're a part of this freight logistics zone. You understand what's going on with the restore money. You're a part of that activity, and I just encourage you to continue that mode of operating. But there's still opportunities, I think, to leverage as well. We feel like that the current level of airport marketing can be improved, and obviously that is one of the reasons that you asked AFCON to help find these dollars to conduct this study, and an output of this will be a way for you to conduct that marketing in the most efficient manner, as well as to get the best return on your investment. So 2 of the main opportunities, what we call Franklin Site 001, which came out of the Freight Logistics Zone study, is a piece of property I'm going to show you that connects the airport to the rail. And then another piece, Franklin Site 2, that could also be available for economic development. One of the ideas there of an off-road park. If anybody's familiar with the park in Chipley, Hard Labor Creek Off-Road Park, that may be of interest for the site where we have the environmental considerations because of the former waste location there. So these are some of the things that we took a look at in the opportunities. Obviously a restaurant, additional tea hangers because there is a waiting list. So a lot of opportunities came forward, and that's what you want. You want to have a lot of things to choose from so that you can begin to prioritize. Here's a few more. So this is the property that incorporates, this is the work done by Leota Location and Design, where they have expertise in suitability modeling and how many parcels you need to put into a site to make it viable and of interest to the site consultant community and the corporate real estate executives that are looking to locate industrial projects. And so you can see it includes the work camp, it includes access to 98, it includes a lot of the land that's owned by the Nebraska organization, and then it has about a mile of rail available to it. And you do need about a mile of rail siding in order to for the industrial engineers with the Genesee and Wyoming Railroad Group to be able to put the rail siding into the property and make it useful for rail. Some of the threats that we looked at, there's a lot of feedback about the FBO. There's opportunity to, I think, improve to industry standards, perhaps relocate it on the airfield, and then repurpose the existing building. Certainly the closing of the north-south runway as potential is as early as May of this year, which is a month from now, is a threat. And then other things that are, hard, that we all deal with, hurricanes, the uncertainty. We've talked this morning already about what's going on in Tallahassee with the legislature, so we're all kind of waiting to see the position Florida is going to take publicly with economic development. And of course, our neighboring states, what the Panhandle deals with in economic development that the rest of the state doesn't necessarily is direct competition with Georgia and Alabama and how aggressive they are. And even Texas is advertising in Florida right now aggressively because of the conversations that are going on in Tallahassee. So the project focus areas, after going through this process and hopefully getting additional input from you this morning, are to conduct an economic impact analysis of the airport. We want to make sure you understand the direct jobs that are there, the indirect jobs that are created in the community because of people who do business with the airport, and the induced jobs that are created in the community because of the payroll that comes out of the airport. We want to continue the site readiness gap analysis to make sure that the properties that we're looking at are suitable for the options that are being proposed, evaluate the work camp, perhaps conduct a competitive benchmark of the airport, either with another region in the state that is, or in the United States that is similar, has similar assets, or do it here locally. What would be the impact of developing a non-airport parcel versus an airport parcel? Take further evaluation of the off-road vehicle park, look at a new FBO with a restaurant and what that looks like and what that would generate, additional row of T-hangers, which is great now that you're putting in that new road for commercial access, certainly leveraging the Restore Pot 1 funds, and then developing the airport marketing plan to ultimately show off the activity and the due diligence and the effort that you're putting into this tremendous asset. And that concludes my report, Mr. Chairman, and I'll be available for your remarks.
Any questions from the board for Ms. Beth?
Let me just make one comment regarding the north-south runway. This is a risk that is in front of the county, and May, I think you put the May deadline there because that's the next time the airport is going to be inspected, and so it's a risk that when the FAA comes down and looks at the airport, or FDOT says, well, you haven't done enough on that north-south runway to maintain its operational. And the issues have been either the tree growing on the side, the markings on the runway itself. I mean, there are a couple of things that are going on, and just it's not apparent to imagine how much it costs to maintain that runway. Sitting here in the room, those runways are huge, and the materials that, like on the markings, they're probably, I don't know, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 just to mark that one runway. And unless we get a grant from DOT, we don't have the funds internally to do it, and DOT says you don't need 3 runways, Franklin County, and so that's what's happening with us. We would like to maintain it, but it's just a problem, and so we may hear about it at the inspection, which is coming up in just a month.
Let me ask you a question. If that runway closed, would it be possible to open it back up later?
It's always possible to open back up later. The thing about it, and there's a pro and a con to that runway. Certainly, the pro of having 3 runways is that we are then the only airport in the whole northwest Florida that has 3 runways 5,000 feet long. So we have all this capacity for runway space. A pro about closing it is that if that runway goes away, now you have all this space for economic development, because that runway represents uplands, dry land that hasn't had a landfill on it. I mean, it's a lot of land that now you can do other things and bring your ramps activities and your airport activities closer to the other 2 runways. So the county can win either way. If we have somebody who wants that space, I mean, you could use it for other purposes besides the runway, but admittedly, if you do that, you'll never get the runway back. So, I mean, it's a final decision you make, not to close it, but when it's closed, then you have to think, do we want to try and maintain it as a runway, or are there other things that can go on top of that asphalt, and all of a sudden you have a bigger, more accessible industrial park? I mean, either way has potential, but in the evaluation of the FDOT has just told us, and we're relying upon them as the experts of aviation in the state of Florida, Franklin County, we don't see a need for you having 3 runways, therefore we're not funding that 3rd runway. And that's just the reality we've been facing for 20 years.
But you're saying if we shut down, if that one runway does close, then that allows more room for economic development?
It certainly could. That's a lot of space that's being occupied by a runway right now. I mean, I don't know how many acres it is, but
It's a lot, and it definitely will open it up.
not only the runway itself, but you got the ramp area on either side, or the taxiway on either side. I mean, it's a huge area. So, I know the pilots in the area do not want to talk about closing the runway as anything positive. They see it as a total negative loss of airway space. But if you look at the airport and our limited ground space, closing the runway actually has possibilities, because now we open up land that currently isn't available for economic development. So it can go either way.
Any further questions from the board for Ms. Beth?
I'm going to ask a question, not necessarily from Ms. Beth, but I just want to make sure, still trying to catch up with a lot of things. The runway you're talking about is the one all the way to the right on the
Yes,
picture?
yeah,
Okay,
that's along the
Okay.
north-south one.
thank you.
And one of the other things, and we mentioned the FBO, we might as well talk about it now. I mean, I think the airport committee will be going out for RFPs on the FBO.
Yes, I'm preparing an RFP now for your review. The Airport Advisory Committee is giving me authorization to do that. So that should be here this next month.
Okay, we just recognize that that's an issue. And the challenge will be, are we, the county, being unfair with the expectations of an FBO for the amount of revenue they generate out there versus the burden that we are expecting of them to maintain the whole airport? I mean, it's a very large airport, and that's something I don't know, FBOs, you all talk about.
Yeah, it's not industry standard for an FBO to take care of an airport that size. And so what my recommendation is that maybe we figure out a compromise with the next FBO operator. If we can allocate a resource from the county maybe once a month, once a week during the busy season, just to help out with manpower, to go out there from the road department and help them maintain those 1,100 acres. Because it is a challenge for an FBO that might only employ 2 or 3 folks on a regular basis to maintain an airport of that size.
That's just something.
So that's something we probably need to look at when we start negotiating with the next FBO operator, that probably will be a consideration and hopefully won't be a deterrent for most of them. I know from my experience that the current waiver structure would be a deterrent of bringing some qualified folks in. A lot of FBOs don't want to have to deal with, they want to do what they do and not do the road department's job at an airport.
No.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes.
I apologize.
Yes, sir.
A lot of alphabet soup. What's an FBO?
I'm sorry, buddy. A fixed base operator.
Thank you.
They maintain the business entity at the airport. They do all the fueling and the rental cars, and they maintain the space where the passengers come in and wait and that kind of
So
thing.
they rent the T hangar, they make money by renting the T hangar.
They're a leasehold
selling
of the
gas.
airport.
And a full-fledged FBO, full operation, would not only rent gas, rent T hangars, but do airport maintenance, airplane maintenance, which we haven't seen as much of as we'd like to see.
Right.
Provide airport flying services, all that kind of stuff, that for a variety of reasons, this FBO started out that way and then didn't quite get there, and it's kind of shrunk back. So, it's a challenge to find somebody out there.
And all due respect, if we get to where we're wanting to go, it changes the dynamics of everything.
Yes, sir.
We're not there yet, and we won't be there by the time we select the next FBO operator.
Right.
But as we move forward, and if we get to where we're wanting to go, or if we get parceled away, all the dynamics start changing.
Yes, sir.
As to the amount of business going on out there.
Right.
I know there was some mention this morning about a restaurant. Right now, we don't have the capacity or the amount of traffic to support a restaurant out there.
Right.
But I think it's a good idea, but we're just not quite there. So a lot of the dynamics will start changing if we can get some of these studies done, attract some new business, job opportunities, this thing. Then you can move forward with some of these other things that we've looked at as presented by Ms. Beth this morning. But those
Yes, sir.
dynamics will change and we'll have to transition accordingly.
Yes, sir.
As things change around us.
We finally have, and it's been 6 months or so, we finally have two sort of large leaseholders out there. One is the FBO, and they pay us, I forget how much now, a month.
2,500 a month.
The FBO pays us $2,500 a month?
It's supposed to be, yes, sir.
Okay. And then we have the other leaseholder in the other building.
Right, and that's at 1,500 for the first year, then 2,500 for years 2 through
Right, so
5.
we finally have two sources of revenue out there, which is something we've been working for a long time.
So again, we need to start looking at an additional building out there.
Yes, sir.
Something we need to look, I know not today, but as we move forward, because as young lady stated, and many people's told me before she came here today, they want existing buildings. Well, we don't have an existing building.
Right.
And if we have one and somebody wants to lease it, then we're gonna lease it.
That's right.
So that's something else that we need to look forward to as we're moving forward
Yes, sir.
and moving
Whatever
forward.
happened to Randy Randolph's lease? Did he ever give it up?
I don't know the answer to that. I can find out. And I know that's,
We may have a third building out there. Dr. Randolph at one time had emailed me saying that he was going to give up his airplane and therefore give up his building out there. And that's a smaller T hangar, or smaller hangar.
Right.
It's not a T hangar. I mean,
it's a box. It's what's considered a box hangar. And John and I, we did meet with the FDOT a couple weeks ago, and that's one of the things we're talking about in our 5-year plan coming up is adding, a possibility of more T hangars and another box hangar and see if we can get some FDOT funding for that to attract, and kind of work in accordance with trying to attract some business here, industry.
Any other questions from the board?
Yeah, I just wanna say one thing. Computers is a thing of the future. And I know somewhere in this country, you can find a computer company that'll come out there and build computers and fly them in and out. You
Okay.
just ain't looking hard.
Okay.
I mean, you got the speed,
Right.
you got the runway, you got everything right there. And that's going with the future. And then that'll be job for the kids back there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Any other questions from the board?
Oh, Jason Puckett, Airport Manager.
Thank you for coming in today. Thank you for coming, Ms. Beth. And tell Virgil Lewis I'd like to see him down here shortly.
Tell Brother Lewis we'd like to see him, huh?
We love you coming too, don't get me wrong, but we like to see Virgil every now and then. Relay that message for us. Next on the agenda will be Mr. Michael Morone, Board of Adjustment Report.
And actually, Commissioner Amy's going to be presenting.
Miss Amy?
Oh, there it is. It's small for me. All right. Amy's going to do both your Board of Adjustment and your planning and zoning. I'll just stand as backup. And Commissioners, if you see, actually the projecting the computer, that's ours. We got that. What we're trying to transition towards is having to print as much paper for these planning and zoning reports and Board of Adjustment reports, especially for the audience, so we can just show it here for everyone's sake. All right, Amy.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I can see. Okay, basically in March, we had Mr. and Mrs. Simmons come in for a variance. DEP, they would have to get a DEP permit in order to build on their property. And they are requesting a 20-foot setback into the front towards the road. I think it came before the Board of County Commissioners, and you wanted more information concerning the variances in the area. I did some research based on, and this is the property located right here. And I did some research based on the area as requested, and I found, and this is the layout of the property. Basically, this is the neighboring property, and this is the frontal dune that DEP said that they needed to be in front of. So they've put their house as far forward as possible, leaving a 5-foot setback from the lot line. And so I did the research based on, so we had, this is the requested property, 890 Gulf Shore Drive. This lot here was approved and permitted for a variance, and these other two properties were as well. They were existing homes that moved their houses from the water side up, and this one required a variance. I think it was 15 feet, and these two both were 22 feet. And then I just put together a map showing this is the location of the island. It's very narrow in that area. And then the addresses where the other variants were. Basically, in order for them to get a DEP permit to construct their house, they would have to have at least a 20-foot variance. They've met all the other required bullets that the DEP made them go through. This was one of the last hurdles that they had to go through in order to get the variance to construct.
And one question, you got,
Okay.
the 882 Gulf Shore Drive was granted a 22-foot variance?
Yes, sir, and 878, they were existing homes, and they were granted a variance for 22 feet into the front setback, and they did permit it and move the houses forward towards the road.
Okay, because of erosion?
Yes, sir.
On the Gulf side? And what year was that done, do you know?
I've got the,
Recently, or 30 years ago? or-
no, it was probably around 2005 in that time frame. It
Okay.
wasn't,
That's what-
the one to the east was done in 2006, April of 2006. And then the one, let me see. This one, the farthest one, was done in 2005. This one was done in 2006. And then this one actually had a double variance of 15 feet, and one was done December 2005, and the other
I suspect
was
all-
done in 2007.
Okay.
I'm suspecting all three of those houses got moved because of the same storm event.
Yes.
Not- well,
Hurricane Dennis,
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Hurricane Dennis.
Dog Island, bad.
Alan, real quick, now, this is typically done on St. George Island too? We allow them to come forward,
Yes.
uh,
The standards.
if I remember correctly?
Yeah, the county's position has been in the past that since the state standards are so much higher and more thorough on their siting evaluation, that if the state of Florida says in order to protect the frontal dune, you have to move back, we've generally allowed the houses to move back and then grant a variance from our front setbacks, so the houses end up closer to the road. Yes, it's been a common practice to do that on St. George. Admittedly, Dog Island's a little bit different because Dog Island has a lot more erosion going on than St. George does. But no, we traditionally have allowed the homeowner who has a bigger hurdle to go through DEP, that once they get that, DEP says, this is what you must do, and then we then comply with DEP predicament, trying to solve their predicament.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
This issue, can we turn the lights back on now?
Yeah.
I like to see who I'm talking to. This issue came before the board 2 weeks ago. As you all know, it's in the area that I represent. And since then, we have had a letter from the Bear Island Trust opposing to this because it is in the primary dune. This is the Gulf side of Dog Island. They have extensive erosion. We've also had a letter from the Dog Island Conservation District opposing this. And we've also had a letter from the most important one to me is the Nature Conservancy. In the Nature Conservancy's letter, they let you know that they own over 70% of Dog Island. And the most important thing is they own all the roads over there. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm firmly against this variance. And I'm going to state you the reasons why. If you allow this to happen, the house would be right next to the road. With those variances that have been given since 2005, 2006, only 2 of the houses are still standing. The other 2 have washed out into the Gulf. And so this is the main reason. I have had numerous calls, numerous emails, and I've tried to pass them on to Michael to have him pass them. I have found no one in support of this. And I cannot sit here as a commissioner knowing the island, the structure of the island like I do. Spent many a day as a kid over there. And so I cannot, as a commissioner, sit here and say, I'm gonna give him a blessing. I just can't do that. So with the support of the Nature Conservancy, Barrier Island Trust, Dog Island Conservation District, and the majority of the residents over on Dog Island, I'm gonna ask that this variance be denied. Make a motion to that effect.
We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Sanders. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Jones. Any further discussion amongst board members? There being no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.